Hey guys, it's Kathleen, and today we're going to be talking about some popular books that I dislike. So in theory, no one should have to give the disclaimer, but I like to give it anyway. Just because I don't like this book doesn't mean that it's a bad book. It doesn't mean that you're bad for liking it. I think everyone's reading tastes are just different, and I think it's going to vary a lot what we're going to like. So we're not all going to be the same, and that's totally okay. My personal preferences don't dictate other people's. There are lots of people who are going to love these books, and lots of people are going to hate them as well. And there are loads of books that other people think are just terrible that I completely love. So I totally understand that feeling, but you really don't need to feel that way. It's not a judgment on you just because I don't like a book. But these are some books that I see floating around all the time that have either really high ratings or just really popular in general with people, and I just happen to not like them for whatever reason. There's a few books on this list that are disliked more than others, and then there are some on here that are probably a surprise to many people because they are very, very popular. But without further ado, let's just get into the books. The first book I will be talking about today is All the Right Places by Jennifer Niven. This is a story about two teenagers, Violet and Finch, who meet in a class project and slowly start to fall in love, but they're both dealing with their own personal grief and personal issues. Violet's sister died in a car crash a while ago, and Finch is dealing with undiagnosed bipolar disorder. When I first heard about this book, I thought it sounded like the greatest thing I'd ever heard of. I was so excited to read it. I went and bought it, I think as soon as I started working at a bookstore. It was one of the first purchases I ever made. I was so excited, and did not live up to that excitement. I've only really mentioned this book once on my channel before, and that's because I usually don't talk about books I don't like very much. But my issues with this book mainly stem from its representation of mental illness. Everyone is going to have a different experience with this kind of book. Some people are going to think it's a really, really beautiful portrayal, and other people are going to hate it the way I did. So my main issue with this book is the way it romanticizes mental illness. It presents mental illness as this thing that you can use to have this beautiful life experience. And it basically says at the end that even if someone dies because of their mental illness, you can still learn a beautiful lesson from it. And that bothered me so much. It really, really rubbed me the wrong way. There's also this implication in the book that you shouldn't ask people for help because it won't do anything anyway. And it really, really doesn't do anything to combat the idea that you shouldn't go to people for help, especially people in authority. I would have preferred it if that had been challenged a bit more and they dealt with that, and maybe the other character had sought help a bit and gotten it, but that really wasn't addressed, and that's something I really disliked about this book. I also didn't like the characters. They felt like cardboard cutouts to me. They never felt like real people. They were basically just put into these boxes of mental illness, and that was all the personality they had. I've read 100 better books about mental illness. Not 100, but you know what I'm saying. I've read so many better books about mental illness than this one, and this one I really cannot recommend. I know it is insanely popular, but it feels so much like a ripoff of The Fault in Our Stars, just with mental illness, and I'm amazed that people like it so much. Honestly, it's one of those books that I guess I can see the emotional portrayal would really resonate with some people, but it just did not at all for me. The next book I want to talk about I recently unhauled, and I will link my unhaul video down below, but that is The Young Elites by Marie Lu. This is Marie Lu's second series. Her first was the Legend series, which is another series that I've started and I've just never really gone back to, but I do want to get to it eventually. But this book just did not work for me. It follows our main character, Adelina, who basically gets taken in by this dark, kind of sketchy group who want revenge on everybody. It's sort of a fantasy, and she has one eye and she has all these dark powers, and they want to learn how to control them essentially, but she is constantly going on about how she has all this darkness inside of her, and she feels so dark and she doesn't know what to do with all her darkness and all her powers and what's gonna happen. I don't know. I don't like this book very much. I DNF'd it finally because I just thought it was so boring. Nothing was happening. It was literally just Adelina going on for 200 pages about how dark she was and how she felt her darkness coming out. And I was like, okay, I get it, your darkness, but like, can we do something else with this plot? I didn't care about any of the characters. They were all boring to me. I had no interest in anyone. I had no interest in the plot. I don't even remember where the plot was going at this point, or if it was going anywhere, because it just wasn't very good. So I really, really don't recommend this book at all. The next book I want to talk about is sort of an honorary mention, sort of not, but that is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I read the first 3 books in the Moral Instruments series, which was originally meant to be a trilogy, and then she just expanded them later on. And to be honest, I thought they were okay. I didn't love them. I thought City of Glass was for sure the strongest one, but honestly, City of Bones was kind of a drag. It was hard to get through. I've never been that fond of the characters. There were only one or two I really ended up attached to by the end of the first 3 books, and nothing about this series really felt that unique or original. It's the reason I didn't continue with it, and the reason I just thought it wasn't very spectacular overall. I don't see myself ever returning to this series. A lot of people have said the prequels are quite a bit better, and I can acknowledge that, but it doesn't mean I really want to go back to it. Just because they were boring and not that exciting, I had some attachment to some of the characters, but overall I think City of Bones is a super weak book. I gave it 3 stars and I just thought it wasn't that great. The next book I'd like to talk about is a recent read of mine, and that is Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. Now this book has higher than the 4.0 rating on Goodreads. It is very popular. People really like this book. I'm just not one of them. This book is a story about a girl named Anna Oliphant who goes to France in her final year of high school because her dad has sent her away, and she just complains about it and is really sad about it. But then she meets a boy named St. Clair there who she falls in love with, but he has a girlfriend, and then her friend is also in love with him, so she doesn't know what to do. Boo-hoo, poor Anna. Anna is seriously one of the dumbest characters I've ever encountered in my entire life. She literally cannot do anything by herself. She is supposedly a film buff, but then admits she didn't know that there were cinemas in Paris. She has a Scottish grandfather, and she has a tartan bedspread and has a pillow embroidered with her family's motto on it, but she is shocked to learn that that motto is in French. She doesn't speak a lot of French when she gets to France, which is okay, but instead of going up to the guy at the counter for food and asking him at this English school she attends if he speaks English, she just eats from the salad and bread bar for a week instead of asking a simple question. She's just so unintelligent, honestly, and she was so boring, and I thought the writing was not very good, to be honest. I didn't like St. Clair. I think a lot of this book hinges on whether you think he is a great romantic hero, and he's not. He's just constantly emotionally cheating on his girlfriend with Anna and won't break up with her for some inexplicable reason. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think this is a good book at all. I really don't recommend it. I can think of 100 cute, fluffy reads that are so much better than this one, so this is one I would really just give a pass on. The next book I'd like to talk about is one I also recently unhauled, and that is One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This is a story about 5 teens who walk into detention, and then by the end of it, one of them has died, and the other 4 teens are all suspects in the murder. It's supposed to be kind of a Breakfast Club retelling from what I've been told, and all of them very much fit into those archetypes that you see in the Breakfast Club, but there is one major difference between this book and the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is good. This book is not. Because the characters all fit into these shallow archetypes, it takes a skilled writer to actually dissect them and make them more than that, and this writer did not do that. You've seen them all before, you'll see them again, there's nothing unique here. I'm gonna get spoilery here for a split second, but one of the other major issues with the suspense is that I didn't suspect any of the main characters at any point. It was super obvious to me that they did not do it, that it was someone else from the outside, and that was like so clear to me. This writer does not actually have the skill to have these characters tell their story in first person narration and actually cast doubt on them and make them unreliable narrators. It's super hard to do that, and I respect that that's probably really hard to do, but clearly she tried, and I have to criticize her for that because it didn't go well. The whole book felt very unoriginal, it lacked any suspense, and as was pointed out in a Goodreads review, it actually has a couple problematic elements, and I will link that down below in case you want to take a look at that, but I really did have some issues with it. I didn't think it was very well done. I didn't think it was suspenseful at all. I really don't get the praise for this. This has been on the New York Times bestseller list for weeks, pretty much since it came out, and I don't get it. I'm sure there are a million more mystery YA thrillers out there that are written way better, actually have a sense of suspense to them, and don't make it super obvious who did it from the first like 30 pages. Initially I gave this 3.5 stars, but I definitely lowered it to 3. There were a couple characters I didn't mind, and I didn't mind some of the relationships, but overall just not a good book. I really don't recommend it. So the next book I wanted to talk about pained me when I first read it, and that is The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. If you know anything about me, you'll know that I love Jandy Nelson's other book, I'll Give You the Sun, which was her second novel. It is in my top 5 favorite books of all time. It falls at number 3, and I just love it so much. It is such a beautiful book, such a beautiful exploration of grief and family and friendship and love, and I loved everything about it. But I did not love her first book. I read this one after I read I'll Give You the Sun, and maybe that was a cause for my expectations being so high. It definitely was, actually, but they were really shattered by this book. This is a story about a girl named Lenny whose sister has just died in an accident, and in her grief, she finds herself torn between a boy at school she meets who is a total dreamboat and her sister's former boyfriend who she was dating before she died. Yeah. There was a good exploration of grief, and I guess the book was pretty, but it was also extremely slow moving. Nothing really happened in this book. It was kind of dull. It was basically just Lenny trying to decide between these two boys when it was super obvious that she should not have been going for the other boy. She should have been going for the boy in her class, but she still couldn't make up her mind. And I guess grief does crazy things to us, but I just didn't buy it. I was so sad that I didn't like this because of how much I love I'll Give You the Sun, but there really was just nothing about it that really appealed to me. The writing was kind of pretty, it was flowery, it was usual Jandy Nelson stuff, but I just didn't think the actual story was very good. I didn't think it was very convincing, and I didn't find Lenny that sympathetic, so this was a 2.5-star book for me, unfortunately. The next book I'd like to talk about is a super controversial one, and that book is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin O'Leary Sons. This is a story about two boys named, wait for it, Aristotle and Dante, and they meet and they develop a friendship, and there's a car accident and one of them saves the other, and then they go their separate ways for a bit and then they reunite or something. It's weird. I don't know. I didn't get it. Basically, this book has no plot. If you didn't know that going in, you should know that. If you like plot, which I do, you will not find it here. It's basically just this weird character exploration of these two characters, and to be honest, I thought Aristotle was super insufferable, and he's our narrator. He's really annoying. He's super emo and angsty, but at the same time is like, I'm a super average guy and I don't have deep thoughts, except like he totally does. I'm gonna get a bit spoilery for a second, but I didn't love the character arc in this book for Aristotle. I also just didn't get how it added up. Basically, at the end, his parents tell him, oh, you had all these issues in this book, and that's because you were in love with your best friend. I liked Dante. He was a good character, but we didn't really see enough of him, honestly. We saw too much of Aristotle, and he was just kind of annoying, and overall, it was just a slow, boring book. Nothing happens in this book. It's just weird. It's just them hanging out, and I guess that's fine, but I didn't like it. It wasn't that good. I can kind of see why this book has such a following and why people love it so much, but it's just not for me. It has won a lot of awards, and the writing is sort of pretty in its simplistic style, but overall, I just don't think this book was for me. It was a 3-star book, and I really don't ever recommend it to anybody. The next book I would like to talk about is Every Day by David Levithan. This is a story about a character named A who wakes up every day in the body of a new person, and they've just kind of accepted this their entire life. They've never understood it, but they've just gone along with it until one day they wake up in the body of a boy, and he turns out to be the boyfriend of a girl that they start to fall in love with in that one day. Now, as you can guess, this book is full of insta-love, and to be honest, I don't hate insta-love all the time. I love The Sun Is Also a Star, and that's arguably kind of insta-lovey, but at the same time, I think it has to be done well, and I don't think it's done well here. A is pretty much obsessed with Rhiannon from the minute they meet her, and honestly, I just don't think the magic was here for me in this book. A lot of people think it's really beautiful and really poetic and philosophical, and I just don't get that. The other major issue I have with this book is what I said in my Goodreads review quite a while back, which is basically that this book buries the lead. So, spoilers, major spoilers, turn this off now if you don't want spoilers, but at the end of the book, A meets this person who also turns out to be someone like them, and that person says that there are more people like A in the world, and that they could potentially learn to stay in one body for an extended period of time. Pretty much just dismisses this, goes off and says they're not going to do this anymore, they're not going to deal with it, and I thought that sucked. It's not that I want A to be going around inhabiting other people's bodies all the time, but I thought there was so much potential to tell a really cool sci-fi story in there, and the author just wasted that. It really sucked. It would have been cool if we could have done a sequel with that story, but no, we were stuck with the musings and romance of A and Rhiannon. I thought the relationship was boring, the story had a lot of wasted potential, so overall this was a 3-star read. It was very quick and very easy to get through, but that didn't make it any more enjoyable. And then the final book I'd like to talk about today is a very popular book, and that is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I read this a few years ago before the 13 Reasons Why craze. I believe I read this in 2014, and I didn't like it then, and I tried to read a bit of it again this year, and I didn't like it now. It's funny because I did enjoy the TV show a lot, but I thought that the book was pretty bad, honestly. It wasn't terrible, it wasn't the worst book I've ever read, but I had no attachment to the main characters. I thought Hannah was kind of sympathetic, but I wasn't really attached to her at all. I thought Clay was super boring. He was the most boring narrator I'd ever encountered, totally uninteresting. He had no personality. I also didn't think the writing in this book was good at all. It felt so amateur. There was no creativity, nothing beautiful about it, nothing imaginative. I just thought it was super, super boring. The concept behind this book is definitely very creative. I'll never deny that, but at the same time, that doesn't make a good book. I know so many people love this book and so many people have really, really gotten a lot out of it and they've really felt good after reading it and after watching the show, but I just didn't get any of that. When I first read it, I thought, oh, that was okay, but that was forgettable. I didn't really have any strong emotions regarding it and I felt completely unattached to the whole thing. So yeah, I really, really don't like this book. I don't think it's that good. I think the TV show is actually better. And I rarely say that, but I think this is one of those instances in which the TV show just generally was better for the concept. It was a better format and I think the actors brought it to life really well, whereas in the book I was like, these characters all suck, they're all stupid and boring and I don't like any of them. So those are some popular books that I dislike for various reasons. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It took me a while to film, so I hope you do. Let me know if you guys feel this way about any of these books, or if you like them and you want to tell me why, please let me know. As well, let me know what are some popular books that you cannot stand. I would love to know. If you did enjoy this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe on your way out. If you would like to follow me on any of my social medias, the links will all be in the description. But in the meantime, I will see you guys next time.